of the most unique and memorable mechanics in Fear and Hunger is the ability to attack the enemy's limbs as well as lose your own. So you might find yourself asking the question, can you beat Fear and Hunger without any limbs? Well, no, you just die. You can't exactly move around with just your chin after all. But what we can do is start with just one arm and avoid anything that requires the use of limbs. So here's my slightly contrived set of rules. The two most important rules are we can't use weapons or shields, and we can't use any skills that would require the use of limbs. So stuff like leg sweep, on guard, lockpicking, or stances. The basic attack is fine, headbutts exist after all, and so is magic since you, presumably, just speak that. This rule really just applies to combat, by the way. I don't see how a torso would logically progress otherwise. We'll play on terror and starvation because I don't have the time nor patience to function without saves on hard mode. Besides, this game is a buggy mess, and if I lost a run because of a crash, I wouldn't be making this video. Second, we have to get ending B. It's one of the hardest to get, so it'll make things more interesting. For a similar reason, my only party members will be ghouls, skeletons, and blood golems. In spirit of the challenge, I will saw their limbs off when recruited. I can't learn skills with empty scrolls, and no damage over time effects are allowed since they're ridiculously overpowered. For better or for worse, I chose to play as Anki, and in his intro I learned mastery over insects, pyromancy trick, maxed my Grogaroth affinity, and gained a soulstone. That last one was a terrible idea. I saved this intro, then closed the game, opened a save editor, and gave myself a bone saw and a Book of Enlightenment. I proceeded to load the save, cut off my arm and both legs, unequipped my short sword, then used the Book of Enlightenment. I closed out of the game again, reopened the save editor, and used it to remove the arm, 2 legs, bone saw, and short sword from my inventory. Now I could actually start the challenge. And my initial few runs didn't exactly go well. Due to the hounds quickly closing in, I tried to loot the crates in the corner of the map before slowly scurrying down the west stairs. The first time I tried this, I was too slow and the hounds pounced on me, which proved I couldn't hope to beat them in a fight with my current loadout. On my second attempt, I managed to get into the depths, but thanks to my slow crawling speed, I got caught in the fight with a Maneba and lost, which was pretty pathetic. On my third, I managed to get past the Manebas and snagged a bunch of loot on the way. I made it to the Iron Shakespeare room and looted everything there, but then proceeded to die to a prison guard in the depths below like a fool. As a disclaimer, I leapt into this challenge after not playing the first game for over 2 years, and the sequel for a year. So I was super rusty throughout all this. Anytime I do something suboptimal, just remember that. It was clear my plan wasn't really working out. Since I can't outrun a prison guard, I would have no choice but to take on 2 of them back to back with just pyromancy trick. It's really good I switched gears because I didn't realize this for an embarrassing amount of time, but enemy heads have 40% magical evasion, unlike the sequel. So for most enemies, I only have a 60% chance of blasting their heads off. My new strategy was to rush the north entrance, which meant ignoring the loot outside and hurrying down the corridor on the right. It took me a few tries to get it down. If I was too slow or didn't position myself correctly, the Jagged Jaws would pathfind into the hallway and rip me to shreds. But once I did, this proved to be a lucrative and safer route. Unlike the west entrance, I had a library to loot, and one of the first books I found was the Necronomicon. I won the coin flip, which taught me necromancy. I also found an assassin's handbook, which lets me craft enemy disguises. Neither help me now, but will later. From there, I made my way north through the courtyard and fought the 2 priests. Fortunately, they didn't put up much of a fight, and my pyromancy spells actually cooperated. From this, I was able to get a new soulstone and collected a soul with my old one. I then visited the library in the northwest corner of the map, where I got my hands on a book of forgotten memories. And thankfully, it taught greater blood magic, one of the 2 skills I wanted to get my hands on. I then ran back into the courtyard and learned hurting with a hexen. Normally it had cost me 40 mind to cast, but since I learned greater blood magic, it only costs 10 mind. As you can probably imagine, this is going to be my bread and butter for combat. Eventually Black Orb too, but for now I'm just working with what I got. Thanks to my new arsenal, I threw myself down the well in the courtyard and looted everything I could, making sure to fill my glass vials with wine. I made it to the Iron Shakespeare room, looted that, and decided to use the free save point since I had a really strong start on my torso. From there, I delved deeper into the depths and managed to defeat some annoying cave gnomes and a couple prison guards, but only after dying a couple times like a fool. I didn't dare to try sneaking past the elite guard or fighting them yet. Instead, I took the other exit out of the prison and ambushed Troder. I got my hands on the skinning knife, defeated another prison guard, said hi to an invisible Buckman, and it was at this point I realized I was pretty low on body and mind. Also, side note, this run would have been a bit easier if Buckman properly spawned. So rip me, I guess. I decided to head back over to the library in the northwest corner and use the mock-up book to open the backyard. I said hi to Ragnaldar, scavenged some sticks and herbs, and gave in to bodily temptations in the demonetization party to try and revitalize my flesh. I mistakenly thought it would fill my hunger and mind too, but it only restored my body. My max HP was reduced from hunger, so I lost out on 20 body. Oops. Fortunately, it wasn't a big deal, because now that I had some affinity with Sylvian, I could use the soul stone I got from the priest the priest, and learn Healing Whispers. This will help fix my lack of healing items, since I didn't find Alchemilla 1 or 2. It's not like I can heal endlessly though, I only have so much mind to spare when it's how I attack, so it's a bit of a delicate balance. I also haven't mentioned it yet, but since I move so slowly and I'm playing on Terror and Starvation, I go through my supply of torches uncomfortably fast. I've barely been breaking even on them, and will be pretty screwed if I run out. Plus, a black screen doesn't exactly make for compelling footage, so I try to avoid stumbling around in the dark the best I can. But anyways, I decided to put the skinning knife and assassin's book to use, and for the first time ever, I actually crafted a prison guard disguise with the intention of using it. I went back down into the prisons, put my new skin suit on, and hobbled past the elite guard convincingly enough to avoid getting minced. I looted the treasure chest in the locked cell, then decided it was time to save again. Although this time, I slept in the prison bed since I was somewhat confident I could take on the elite guard if I had to. I just didn't want to. And fighting the Crowmauler now would be an idea. I failed the first coin flip, but it just spawned the regular prison guard I snuck past earlier, so I made quick work of him. I tried sleeping again, and wasn't disturbed this time, even though a cave gnome was clearly watching me in my sleep. And this is where I hit a huge brick wall. I died over 10 times attempting to descend into the mines. The cave mother killed me, cave gnomes killed me, a night lurch killed me, salmon snake killed me, and the yellow mages killed me. I was getting fucked, metaphorically and literally. It was taking 7.5 minutes for each attempt at the salmon snake, since I made a mistake and didn't learn Black Orb before saving. So I killed Kahara for his leather vest, learned Black Orb, and then saved far closer to the elevator. Plus, I realized this save point was safe to use. But unfortunately for myself, the brick wall only got taller. I did eventually get a run where I managed to beat the big dumb axolotl, only to get killed by a yellow mage on the overworld. This was bad. Really, really bad. I was already marching towards him as quickly as I could crawl, and every single time, without fail, my final limb got blown off, causing a game over. I was quite literally stumped. And limb protections don't work on the overworld. And if I couldn't get past this guy, then I couldn't get the Cube of the Depths. Without that, beating the game is impossible outside of the unfulfilling ending D. That would be a cop-out. Besides, I didn't have any explosive vials to go any other route. I tried everything I could think of, even if I was pretty sure it wouldn't work. I grabbed a ghoul and hoped that maybe only he would lose a limb. Nope, it's always the leader. I even tried the same with Darcy. I tried pausing repeatedly to see if that would delay the hurting. It actually sped it up. I tried breaking one of my rules, and used an empty scroll to teach myself Phase Step, which is a hidden skill that teleports you 5 tiles wherever you're facing. And I found out that the spell doesn't work if you don't have legs. So after adding that to the wiki page, I got very, very desperate. If I couldn't find a solution, this run would be impossible. So I resorted to cheating. You suck! Wait, hold on. It's not what you think. I made a copy of my save file, then gave that save a Book of Enlightenment. I had one last Hail Mary up my sleeve. I was going to try saving while the yellow mage cast Hurting. The idea was that when I loaded the save, the timer on the spell would reset. Yeah, turns out it takes a while for someone to read a book. By the time Anki finished, the Hurting spell had landed and I saved as a corpse. Apart from being extremely funny, this was bad news. I used this cheated save to experiment some more, and eventually learned I'm a dumbass. What's new? So, there's actually a crossroads at the entrance to the village, and if you go left, Darcy is getting pummeled by some cave dwellers who weren't so accepting of her religious sermon. Well, if you scooch past there, you'll see the two paths connect. There's an issue, though. You're on a platform above, but thankfully, if you examine this particular tile, you can jump down below. So from here, we can sneak up on the yellow mage, and are you fucking kidding me? I almost threw in the towel at this, but fortunately, my girlfriend was watching and noticed I wasn't lined up with the mage. Thankfully, I was able to stand right here without entering the mage's range, which put me one tile closer than any other spot. This was exactly what we needed to reach this asshole in time to blast his head off. I was ecstatic. Immediately after, my girlfriend and I made dinner, which involved homemade tortillas. This one got super burned, so she threw it away, so then I dug it out of the trash and ate it. I liked it. With all this solved, I could finally make progress. So I recruited Meatbag the Ghoul, went down into the caves, snagged some items, prayed to Ulmer at the Giant Peen, spared and released Moonless, stole the Cave Mother's Soulstone, and went into the mines. From there, I greeted Nosramus, killed the Night Lurch, defeated the Salmon Snake and claimed its soul, I carved some meat, snuck past the Ghost Knight, dispatched Yellow Mage 1, had to use a bear trap to sneak past the Crow Mauler, and then pretended I saw nothing when I found Darcy. I really did not want to upset the cave dwellers. I had no alcohol left and no pipe. After returning to collect the spoils of cowardice, I looted the hut, jumped down, and enacted my revenge on the yellow mage. This left me on the verge of sanity. Thankfully, I found some alcohol soon after. From there, I looted the entire village, which finally got me an explosive vial and checked out the shopkeeper. Much to my dismay, I got the crappy shop pool. So no whiskey, no light blue vials. Just a whole bunch of opium with nothing to smoke it with. I am deeply regretting my starting choices. I could have started with a guaranteed pipe, and instead I opted for a soulstone that probably did nothing in the long run. Anyways, I snagged the Cube of the Depths safely and a rope, which I tied to the shaft to descend into the second demonetization chamber. Thanks, wolf masks. I explored the surrounding mines a bit, only to remember lots of this area doesn't actually have any loot. Great, I'm glad I wasted my precious supply of torches on this. A specter also killed Meatbag. Oh no! Anyways, after a close call with the Crow Mauler, I retreated with my tail between my legs all the way back to the upper levels. On my way back, I decided to be overly cautious and pray at the giant dong again, just in case I forgot to. Turns out, this was a bad idea. If you pray to a statue or circle multiple times, it actually reduces your affinity with the god. And I had, in fact, already prayed there. This wasn't catastrophic, but it was very close to it. After failing 2 coin flips in a row, I managed to save at the bed by Troder's Chambers, and could finally rest easy with the Cube of the Depths and the Salmon Snake soul in my possession. This marked the 6-hour point in my footage. All I had to do now was enter the city of Mahabre, and I'd have no shortage of supplies. Easy, right? I really wish it was. So here's the thing. With the crappy pool I got from the cave dweller merchant and no pipe, I was left with nothing to recover my mind. I was again completely out of booze, and my only means of defending myself is sanity-destroying magic. That's not a good mix. I didn't even have an Alchemilla Volume 1 book to restore body, so that was a huge issue too. Fortunately, I did have one flimsy trick up my sleeve here. When I entered the dungeons, I remembered where the Black Witch's trap was set. What's more, is I remembered it contained a wine barrel. This meant the new plan was this. I head south of my save point to go and take out Isaiah for a lesser soul, his iron mask, orange vial, and maps. Then I limped past the prison guard to pray to Ulmer at the first ritual circle. I then go to the courtyard, fling myself down the well, and into the Black Witch's dimension for 2 wine vials. Next, I hit up the hidden courtyard and open the entrance to the Thicket with an explosive vial. I take out the hounds and enter the depths below. Thanks to my mastery over insects, I got a few free goodies from the insects within. But it was also here that I realized I messed up by not choosing an affinity with the god of the depths in the intro. You see, the only way to increase your affinity with him is by learning mastery of insects, entering the Thicket, taking the hidden path to the Cockroach King, pledging your allegiance to him, and then doing as he commands. Okay, well cool, I already have mastery over insects, so this works out, right? No, I can only complete his first task, which leaves me with 1 affinity, only allowing me to learn Needleworm, the absolute worst spell in the game. His second task is to kill Anki, which is kind of a problem given who I'm playing as. Well, that sucks. As a silver lining, I kind of couldn't go visit the king anyways, since I needed to slice the organ in the Thicket, which isn't accessible if you take the route to visit him. I mean, I could later, but crawling around at this speed makes me want to avoid as much backtracking as possible, so it gets me out of that. I descended all the way through the main path of the Thicket, blasting the heads off of the mumblers in my path, which I later learned was completely unnecessary since they have 5 HP and no physical evasion. I got spit out onto the catacombs, prayed to the last circle I needed for that Ulmer affinity, found Lagarde having such a grand time he wanted to be left alone, and then died to an infected prison guard, costing me the past 45 minutes. Yeah, I forgot how deadly the parasite status was, and that there was a guard there. I was really starting to hate this challenge at this point, which is great because there was 11 more hours of this to go. So I repeated the past steps, then died to the hounds. Then had like 5 deaths to a variety of things early on, which took half an hour. So I decided to make another save after killing Isaiah, getting the wine and learning pheromones and blood golem. And since the mumblers didn't pose a threat to my limbs, and I'd crafted a pinecone pig earlier, I decided to give the little guy some time to shine. My first gift was dirt. Great. That run later died because I didn't realize the elite guard could also see me through the wall here, and I forgot to equip a guard outfit. On the very next run, my fight with the hounds went poorly, but I still managed to limp away from it. And thank Ulmer I did, because when I ran into the first mumbler, this beautiful little pig blessed me with a pipe. The exact item I needed more than anything else right now. I absolutely lost my mind. I was so happy, and I will never overlook the pinecone pig again. Best accessory in the game, no contest. In the spirit of a challenge, I decided against going back and saving immediately afterwards. If I wanted to keep this pipe, I was going to have to fight my way through the Thicket to keep it. And of course, this was the run where I bungled sneaking past the 2 threats of the area. I forgot to get the pulsating mass and had to backtrack, only to get caught in a battle with an infected mumbler. Fortunately, I landed my punch and got out safely. But then I also got caught in the crosshairs of the greater mumbler. I was terrified. If I lost this pipe, I was so unbelievably screwed. I refused to chance it and looked up her moves on the wiki. And upsettingly, when I did, my recording software abruptly stopped. From what I recall, I beat the Greater Mumbler and then I revived the skeleton in the catacombs, who I didn't even bother to name. I then booked it straight to a save point and locked this run in. All hail the Pinecone Pig, savior of challenge runs. Now, I did forget to immediately saw the limbs off my skeleton friend, but I remembered after saving, so that was the first course of action. I then returned to the catacombs and grabbed the Book of Enlightenment, then got my Ulmer affinity went from praying at the ritual circle. I greeted the infected Night Lurge with my black orb, which I don't think he liked very much. From there, I stupidly forgot about my disguise and put in actual effort sneaking past the elite guard. Despite this, I succeeded, so I checked in on Lagarde, but he asked for more nap time, so I left him to it and set off for the city. But before I could, the infected prison guard I forgot about accosted me, so I died like an idiot. So I returned to share my black orb with his face. After that, I left the catacombs again to go back to the Hexen to learn Blood Portal. I used my new skill to create a portal on the first level, return to the catacombs to create another, and enter the Tomb of the Gods. And I have to apologize for the footage here. This is when my supply of torches hit rock bottom, so I had to creep my way through this area in the darkness. The body snatcher was easily defeated though, and I had little problem with the bloody man. This allowed me to peacefully crawl my way into the city of Mahabre. And the first time I came here, I decided to be a hero and attempt to save Jean. This was stupid, because I tried blasting the head off of the Lord of the Flies, only to forget they function like prison guards and always get off at least one attack, so it crushed my ribs and spirit. The next time I got here, I wasn't so naive and took the coward's way out. I forgot about the scarab here, so I ended up having to blast it away with hurting. But afterwards, I entered the nearby room to loot the body I definitely didn't recognize for some plate mail and blue vials. Then I was free to enter the Tower of the Endless, the one and only truly safe location in all of the dungeons. Climbing up and down it is admittedly a pain in the ass for one such as myself, but well worth the effort, because it contains an infinitely reusable save point and a ritual circle I can pair with Blood Portal to teleport around. So I saved my game, left the tower, and went to the past where I kicked myself for not realizing it was a super easy way to save torches while exploring Mahabre. My next objective was to hit up the bug-eyed figurine. So after punching some babies, I arrived at my destination. This little guy is the best. He sells elixirs of mind and body for just 10 silver coins. Each restores about 80 of the respective stat. He even has unlimited stock. In the end, I had around 7 elixirs of mind and 2 of body. I spent a long while just looting the city from here. My first stop was the library, which involved fighting some angry babies. It was tedious, but they were no match for my dark balls. This allowed me to browse for books, but I ended up failing most of my coin tosses. I didn't find any sticks or torches, so I left the library in search of those. Since the past lights up the city, I only had to worry about darkness blinding me indoors, but usually the rooms were small enough for me to fumble through the dark until I found an exit. That or the exits were helpfully lit up. Fortunately, when I did have to resort to using a torch, I usually broke even and found one inside. Still, I really didn't find many torches. I don't know what the odds are on this, but I found a ridiculous number of pinecones in Mahabre. It was almost like a tax I had to pay after the pinecone pig saved my ass earlier. Once I'd scavenged all the easy places, I returned to the tower to save. This was when I officially decided to tweak my rules. I could allow myself to use empty scrolls under one condition. It's to give me sticks. So despite the fact I could request almost anything of the gods, I willingly squandered this power on a stick to light on fire. Thanks to this, I scraped my way to 7 torches. I decided to use my newfound light to explore the dungeons a bit further, so I used my portal to return to the first floor and checked out the hallway I'd avoided up until now. Good thing I did, because I finally had the means to blow it open and claim what ended up being 2 light blue vials, each restoring about 80 body. Pretty handy. The book was not, only netting me blood sacrifice. Useless with my Grogoroth affinity already maxed. I teleported back to the tower, then saved. But I hadn't explored the mines fully, so I went back to them. Originally, I tried going from the catacombs backwards, wasting all my torches, and again remembering there was nothing to be found there without a Book of Mahabre. Eventually, I ran into the Ghost Spectre, and I guess due to me cheesing this enemy in past runs, I mistakenly believed I could just take the ghost out instead of fighting the body. Technically, yes, you can. Realistically, this is a terrible idea unless you use damage over time statuses, which I banned because he has 10,000 HP. I found this out the hard way after burning through all my mind elixirs and died before I could even stubbornly win. After that mess, I retried things without wasting so many torches, created the Mind's Blood Portal, then saved. Now I could safely take on the Old Knight. Good thing I did, because I failed my first fight, then won on the second. This granted me entrance to Nosrimus's lab, where I found a scroll that teaches Loving Whispers, a purple vial, a red and green vial, an empty stick, and some eyeglasses. Also, for some reason, after the Old Knight fight, my blood golem stayed in the party. He had no hunger, retained his body count, not like that, and had no portrait. It did technically give me a small edge since he was in my party turn 1 for my next fight, but since it was a weird one-off bug, I let it slide. He didn't survive a second encounter. Following this, I finally returned to loot the rest of the Grand Library. That netted me an Alchemilla Volume 1. I went to the present in the library, completely forgetting about the Black Witch spawn added here in Terror and Starvation, so she scared the shit out of me. Fortunately, my pheromoned blood golem took the hits like a champ while I took my sweet time blasting her head off. My spectacular luck continued as I succeeded at 2 coin flips in a row, both of which yielding books I could no longer benefit from. Oh goody. It is what it is, so I left to go save. I then visited the Hall of the Gods to claim the Book of Enlightenment I accidentally skipped earlier, and asked about my one true Lord and Savior. Their response was blasphemous. I then fought and skinned a Lord of the Flies, used the fur to make a disguise, then went around the city in the past to make more red and blue herb mixes. Next, I collected the loot from treasure maps 1 and 2. I was super organized throughout this whole run, I know. Initially, I permitted the use of simple transmutation, but after seeing how busted it was firsthand, I decided against using it after all. The Scroll of Water Walking is totally legal though, so I used it to visit Nosramus's secret lab. Good thing I did, because this lizardman I fought back there dropped some opium, and I found another stick. I went back to the library to snag the second map's contents, which netted me 70 coins. I slowly crept my way over to the Gaunt Knight in the present, and defeated him so I could deck out my dear old Skelly. Then I went to the past and bought 2 mind elixirs and a soul devour necklace. Afterwards, I saved. That was all the preparation I could really do. It was finally time to take on the new gods. And if you're wondering, I was 11 hours deep into the challenge at this point. Because of the ritual circle in the Grand Library, I decided to fight Voltaire first. On the way down, I scored a nice book, and actually beat the fight on my first try. The thing is, I used the combustion spell to do that, and it made my victory extremely hollow. So much so, that I amended my rules to officially forbid damage over time effects, which until then I was only using if I felt it was necessary. So I quit without saving and returned, this time with the intention of an honorable fight. For my efforts, I even found Alchemilla Volume 3 on the way. It was like I was being rewarded for my bravery. Then I died horribly. It turned out, not only had I exploited an overpowered spell the first time, I had also gotten extremely lucky with Voltaire's attack patterns. He didn't use Black Orb at all, and he didn't target Anki much, which was great because in both fights I was extremely cocky and didn't even bother to cast pheromones. I died a couple more times. On my winning attempt, I found an Alchemilla Volume 3 and used the following strategy. First, I equipped my party with the following. Anki had a salmon snake soul in case he got hit with hurting on the first turn, while summoning the blood golem. Apart from that, his armor didn't matter much, because on the second turn, I would cast pheromones on the blood golem. In case the golem fell, I needed the skeleton to be able to tank in his stead, so I wanted the skeleton to resist otherworldly damage as much as possible. That's why he's wearing the High Priestess robe and Soul Devour necklace. From there, I utilized the talk command in battle, because I remembered doing so against Voltaire prompts a lore question each time. If you answer correctly, you deal 500 damage to each piece of his body. And fortunately for me, I'm a nerd. I managed to answer each question on the first try without even looking up the answers. I was uncertain about a couple, but deduced the answer from the options. So after defeating Voltaire with facts and logic, I returned to the Tower of the Endless to save before tackling the next god, Nilvan, which conveniently, I access by sleeping in the tower while in the past. And even more conveniently, there's a bunch of free loot to grab in the dream as well. Although with how slowly I move, it took about 10 minutes to fully scavenge. In case you don't know, you can equip priest robes to get some opium powder and an empty scroll from these dark priests. I figured the only issue here was going to be the boss, but actually, the problem was much worse. You see, there's this big outdoor area you have a limited time to cross before a couple of Jagajaws spawn. But they won't just trigger a trivial fight if they catch you, they'll instantly tear out your jugular. And in case you haven't noticed, I don't have any legs to run with. That's not good. Fortunately, it doesn't kill you though, it just boots you out of the dream with no penalty. On my first try, I didn't even get close to the cabin, but in fairness, I thought maybe there were sticks to scavenge and I'd be able to fight the hounds. I was wrong about both. I tried to beeline to the cabin next time, but that still wasn't fast enough. I thought I could maybe optimize my movement some more though, so I tried that. I got real damn close, but then the hounds appeared out of thin air and jumped me. My next strategy involved getting the beast stuck on some trees, but I couldn't get that to work since they seemed to have multiple spawn locations. Well, maybe if I used a Book of Enlightenment, it wouldn't save the hound timer? It did. So I was trapped in an endless cycle in an endless tower. Fitting. But as I mulled over my options, I remembered I had a bunch of bear traps. I wouldn't be able to reliably use them against fast-moving hounds, especially since if I missed, I wouldn't get them back. But since I just used a Book of Enlightenment, I could experiment freely. And wouldn't you know it, this was exactly what I needed. The traps completely pacified the dogs. That's definitely how that works. So now I was able to take on the next boss, the Skin Granny. And I died horribly. Okay, that's another issue. Also, my footage may look slightly different from here on out. I was previously recording with NVIDIA Shadowplay, but after having it abruptly stop recording one time too many, and then just refuse to start recording again, I got fed up and switched over to OBS. But anyways, I needed a battle plan. So, how the Skin Granny works is on the first turn she does nothing, and damaging her is useless. This gives you a chance to set up your party, so I would use that to summon a Blood Golem. Unlike past battles, I dedicated him as an attacker and used my skeleton to tank the damage instead. Because of this, I equipped the skeleton with the gaunt helmet and chestplate with the salmon snake soul. Now, I know that doesn't make much sense on paper, but the Skin Granny inflicts a status called Critical Wound. If you take damage or heal while the effect is active, your HP gets set to 1. Even worse, the Skin Granny has 3 appendages that attack each turn to inflict it. Luckily for us, the Salmon Snake Soul continues to be overpowered as hell because it grants total immunity to this status effect. With this build, my skeleton could hold out for 1 turn worth of damage, giving me a chance to alternate between Black Orb and healing the skeleton up. And regardless of what I was doing, my Blood Golem was wailing on Granny. I targeted the various attacking limbs first to reduce how much damage she dealt in order to conserve my mind. Because even if I had a lot of resources, I didn't want to spend them frivolously. This ended up working extremely well. Thank goodness. All that was left now was beating Shambara, the Tormented One, before I could access the final area. Yet again, I remembered this all being relatively easy, but I was sorely mistaken. For one, I only had 3 torches left and almost nowhere left to loot. I do not know this game well enough to beat it blindfolded, so I was sweating bullets over this. I did everything I could to navigate without torches, only using them in true pitch black darkness from here on out as a result. My rusty memory was also failing me, and I didn't have any legs, so I decided to jump down the giant hole in the temple for a refresher on where the hidden lab was. I knew I wasn't going to beat the boss on my first attempt, so I was writing this first trip off as a learning experience. I was right, since I tried navigating the temple without a torch and bumped into the Red Man. I remembered him being easy. He wasn't, and I died. With the knowledge of where to go memorized, I returned to the temple, looted it, grew my clone, sacrificed him, underestimated the Tormented One, died again, and rage quit. After cooling off, I decided to bend my rules a bit. I used one of my empty scrolls to give myself another Book of Enlightenment. I mean, a book can look like a stick if you hold it sideways, right? Plus it's flammable? I did this because I was getting very tired of crawling all over to repeat steps I've already completed. It does mean I locked in a scroll of the Black Arts from scavenging, which would allow me to teach my skeleton how to shoot ouch balls if I desired. I do not right now, but I will later. The save was helpful because I learned that the Tormented One ignores bear traps, and my pheromones missed the skeleton on the first turn. Then, after it landed, on the second turn, Shambara just ignored them. Cool and amazing. On attempt 2, I didn't even try using pheromones and just spammed Black Orb on his head until he stopped moving. It worked. That let me finish giving my clone the makeover of a lifetime in exchange for some lovely rivers of wine. In fact, it was so lovely that Shambara took a dip in it. So with the subtle sensors behind me, I beat the shit out of him. How the fight works is there's 3 rings to target. The fight ends when the first ring runs out of HP, but it has super high evasion if you haven't stalled the other 2 rings. The issue is you have to stall them in the same turn, which I can't reliably do with 2 AI companions who flail randomly. So after trying to do the fight as intended for a few turns, and getting lucky only once, I went back to the tried and true method of spamming ouch balls on the closest thing to a head. This is a great strategy because it seems the first ring has 0 magical evasion. That or I just got outrageously lucky. It was a bit costly, but I ended up winning on my first try. I probably could have saved on resources if I redid the fight, but that felt against the spirit of the challenge, so I just carried on. I decided to fight the White Angel after this, thinking I'd benefit from its soul, but then I never ended up using it, so this was just a small waste of time and resources. While on the way back, I guess I was browsing my phone and not paying attention here, I stupidly walked right into this harvestman I very much forgot existed. I only remembered the one on the left side of the map. My heart sank. I only had 35 mind, and I couldn't remember his exact attack patterns apart from his insta-kill coin flip. Despite that, I took a leap of faith and tried to blast his head off with Black Orb. Thankfully, that worked. Lesson learned. Pay attention, even if I think it's a safe area. After that, I saved, collected some herbs from the present day, beat up the Nameless Guardian, talked to Francois, somehow crawled faster than the hounds, and destroyed the last organ of the God of the Depths. It was time for the endgame. Except not quite yet. I had a little bit of preparation to do first. During the Tormented One's fight, my skeleton got the Broken Bones debuff, which meant he had reduced max health. And that's kind of an issue if I want him to be able to tank all my damage on my behalf. So I decided to sacrifice him to Grogoroth and go revive a new skeleton, who I creatively named Skeleton in order to carry on Skeleton's legacy of being a skeleton. I made sure to saw off all his limbs, then I saved in the dungeon to save Scum the Bunny Mask's demonetization ritual to raise my affinity with Sylvian. This was so I could learn Healing Whispers in case there was ever a need for me to heal my entire party simultaneously. Better late than never. Then for my last bit of prep, I decided to do something controversial and took the min-maxing to ridiculous levels by idling in the past version of the Tower of the Endless. This very slowly restored my mind of my party in exchange for time, hunger, and my real-life sanity. I know it's a cheesy trick, but I was worried about my dwindling supply of mind elixirs at this point, so this was my way to compensate for that. With that completed, it was finally time to enter the final area, the Gauntlet. Located in the mouth of the deceased God of the Depths, it's a deadly series of challenges before facing off against one of 2 final bosses. Once you set foot in this place, the entrance shuts behind you. There's no going back. Except that's not actually true. Thanks to this run's restrictions and my own incompetence, I almost immediately died to a Moonless Guard. If you do this, you can wake up in Nosra's meat pile and crawl away like nothing ever happened. I mean, your legs are gone, but I didn't have them to begin with, so who cares? I still reset because it does kill your party members though. I just thought this was a funny oversight to share. So I spent another few minutes crawling back to the Gauntlet, actually managing to get past the guards, and was met with a new horrible, terrible, very bad realization. There's a lot of traps to outrun here. And despite what you might think about this first one, it doesn't just lop off your limbs if it hits you. It actually separates your head from your torso, which is a bit of a problem if I want to keep breathing. After a couple deaths to the first pendulum alone, I decided to save right in front of it with my Book of Enlightenment to speed things along. This was a good idea because I proceeded to die to these pendulums well over 50 times. Yes, that's right, 50. For some reference, when I first entered the Gauntlet, I was at the 15-hour, 10-minute mark in my footage. After an hour, I had not managed to get past the 4 pendulums more than once. I don't want to say it required frame-perfect timing to get past each of them, but it had to have been damn close to that. It was an extremely narrow window, which had to be done back-to-back 4 times in a row. Alternatively, I could increase my time between attempts by minutes and try to get past 1 or 2 pendulums, then save to make it less grueling, but that wasn't exactly a fun prospect either. The sound and music here were unbelievably grating too, and made me feel absolutely awful. I didn't want to just mute the game in case I wanted to use the audio of the clips in the video, so I just tried to put up with it for way too long. In hindsight, I should have prioritized my own sanity, because I'm sure you guys wouldn't want to listen to this either anyways. Here's a snippet of what I put up with for an hour straight. Delightful, I know. That should help put into perspective why I then decided to blatantly cheat. I'm not going to excuse it, this was just wholesale cheating. I'm sorry to those who are upset by this, but I'm mostly interested in seeing if this is truly possible, rather than executing a flawless real-time run. This was because getting past the pendulums without legs is clearly possible, but I did not have the willpower to do this all on one save. So I edited my save file to have 5 Books of Enlightenment. I used them to save after each pendulum, but I encountered more issues into the Gauntlet that called for more than 5 Books of Enlightenment. So I had to go back to my save, all the way back from the Tower of the Endless, thanks to Miro's spaghetti code. For some reason my save editor refused to work on saves created from a Book of Enlightenment, so that wasted even more of my time. Cool. Thanks to my cheating, I was able to get past the pendulums before the heat death of the universe, and could now spend my time getting impaled on spikes. Except, not quite. Yes, I did get stabbed by them, but in a weird act of mercy for such an unforgiving game, they don't take you below 1 HP. So I didn't even try to dodge them. I already put far too much effort into having to dodge the rest after all, and I could easily heal back to full before a battle. But I did lose a couple runs by forgetting about the cracks in the floor and falling down to the depths with the 2-headed crow mauler. I did not win that battle. After memorizing the weak spots in the floor, I got by just fine and flipped all the switches necessary to progress. There were some more moonless guards, but my trusty disguise made it simple enough to get by, leading me to the next floor, where we can see the next issue with having no legs in the Gauntlet. There's a giant boulder you need to outcrawl. And obnoxiously, they don't come out at fixed intervals. Sometimes they come out faster or slower. I don't know the exact numbers, but the point is, it's a bit of an RNG check. Even when you do get boulders far enough apart, the timing is pretty tight. I found that going down right repeatedly worked best, as it put more distance between you and the boulder the fastest. When I tried going more right than down, it'd catch up to me and crush me. In the end, it was possible to just barely scoot by without limbs. The only other threat was this one yellow mage lizardman, but with a bear trap, he became much less threatening. Fortunately, I only had to fight this one. The other one actually casts hurting on the overworld like other yellow mages, but there's an alternative path you can take to avoid him no problem. So now it was just a matter of taking on the final boss, Traces of Grogoroth. And he's not exactly easy. It was important I saved right before the fight started, because this little poot has an RNG check at the start with Whispers of Grogoroth. It means, after 5 turns, whoever was whispered to instantly dies. As you can probably imagine, there's no world where I'm beating a god in 5 turns. So if it doesn't target the skeleton, I'm boned. So what's the strategy after that? Well, being a giant god of death and all that, Grogoroth can dish out some pretty hefty damage, but not using the magic he's responsible for. It's from just swiping his meaty paws at you up to twice in 1 turn. Fortunately, these same paws can get lopped off, but they each have about 3000 HP. I absolutely needed to destroy them though, because once the Whispers of Grogoroth have hit, I need either Anki's sickly ass or a naked blood golem to stand up to a god's punches. Neither of them are especially well suited for that, so if I can take out just 1 arm, that massively reduces the damage I'm taking each turn. But until then, I can have my skeleton take all those beefy hits. So before the fight, I healed up the mind and body of both Anki and my skeleton, and taught my skeleton the art of ouch balls. I made sure to equip Anki with the Iron Mask, hard leather armor, and Salmon Snake rune, as the meaty paws do in fact chop off your limbs, and the rest was just the best protection I had left that he could equip. My skeleton, on the other Nub had the gaunt armor and leg guards to maximize his physical protection. Groggoroth does have some fire attacks, but they're so weak compared to his physical strikes, I'm not worried about them at all. I also used my one and only brown vial on Anki so I could get 2 actions per turn, plus some evasion during the fight. In the fight itself, I just had to reset until I got a start where the skeleton got whispered instead of Anki, then I'd use the brown vial on the first turn, and again just had to hope he didn't target Anki with anything too deadly. Next, I'd cast pheromones on the skeleton, and summon a blood golem to help me dish out damage. After this, it settled into a pattern of healing the skeleton when he got too injured, refilling my mind if needed, and throwing every orb I had at Groggoroth's left arm. By the time the whispers had taken effect, it was still standing though, so I had to switch gears and make my blood golem the new tank. Since I could take 2 actions in a turn, I could manage to heal him back up consistently as long as my resources held out, but I was running low. Thankfully, after just a couple turns, Groggoroth's arm finally succumbed, and I had the foothold I needed. Instead of 2 50 damage strikes per turn, it had just become 1. I decided to use my advantage to tear him down to my level and destroyed his other arm. My blood golem had already taken care of his eyes, so it was a face-off between 2 limbless opponents. Well, and the golem, I guess. It was easy from here to blast him apart with my magic, and at last, the final rampart fell. Challenge complete. My reward? Death. So yeah, the challenge is doable, especially if you aren't going for ending A or B. In those latter cases, you could try and use all your empty scrolls for Books of Enlightenment to beat the Gauntlet without needing to cheat them in like I did. With some more optimal routing, I could have also avoided some of my torch struggles. I mean, for one, I massively screwed up on getting my Ulmer affinity. That should have been a top priority to avoid backtracking as much as possible, and my rusty memory failed me miserably there. If I had to do it all again, I might more seriously consider the other characters as possibilities to avoid Anki's no heavy armor penalty. If I did go with Anki again though, I'd have chosen to max my affinity with the God of the Depths to have a way to blind foes and wield an AoE spell. I also would have started with a pipe rather than a single soulstone that can quickly be rendered moot. Also, I suggest only doing an armless run. Yes, a full limbless challenge is harder since you have the possibility of losing all your limbs, which is an instant kill. Plus, it's harder to escape enemies. But those cool challenges are no fun to deal with when you move at the pace of a snail. This entire run took me 18 hours because I was so slow, and I actively had to avoid playing the game or its sequel normally until I beat the run because I knew how much worse it'd be if I remembered how fast I could be going. I don't think I could have stomached this run if I hadn't just returned after a 2-year hiatus. I mean, I say that, but I did actually refresh myself on the sequel a little towards the end, which is another part of why my patience snapped in the Gauntlet. I'm rambling now though. I plan on doing a different challenge run for the sequel next. It won't be a limbless challenge. Christ, never again. Let me know if there's anything I should change about the challenge video format, since I'm new to this. As always, I'd appreciate any support on Ko-fi so I can put your name in the credits and feed myself, but regardless, have a good day or night, viewer.